my name is ScarletSeason, and this is my contest entry for Loopop's Mega Sample Contest. I'm going to play you the track first, and then we'll come back and talk through some of my process and the samples that I chose. So stick around, have a quick listen, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. So the first thing I had to do to get started on this project was, obviously, pick samples. And one of the interesting limitations about the Digitakt is even though there's actually a fair amount of memory on the box itself, within your project you have a limited sample pool. So I had to curate all of my samples ahead of time, think about what things would go together, which things I knew I wanted to have easy access to for trig locks. And I actually had to do some resampling to cut some of the longer samples down so they would fit within my pool. So this is the pool. You can see all of the stuff that I picked. We have a little bit of room left, but again, it goes by memory and sample slots, so there's actually less than you might think. But anyway, the track or the sample that I kicked it all off with, I just love these Godfather samples. They sound so cool and vibey, and I knew I wanted to do a fairly textural, atmospheric kind of track. So I resampled that with a kick drum, resequenced it and resampled it. One of the things about, again, the limitation aspect of this is always remembering you only have 8 sample tracks, and while you can do a lot with 8 sample tracks, there's a lot of resampling as you go that goes into things. If you want to layer up your samples, you don't want to have 2 tracks of snare samples when you could resample it to 1 track and then free up your sample. So we started with that, and then I have my first harmonic content coming from these Dope for samples, and they're here I did this quite a lot where I kept everything right next to each other. I knew, again, I could feel like this was something I might want to play with, these 3 different progressions. And so I've got them trig locked. So you'll see the sample slot change, sample slot change, and then this one has some other conditions that is affecting it. There's also this guy happening right here. One of the things I found when going through these samples is that they were very rich. There's a lot of harmonic content in a lot of them, which actually is a great thing, but it's also a challenge because to have everything play nice together, I found that I needed to whittle away a lot of harmonic content. So I made this sound very, very small. I knew I wanted it to just be this cool tonal percussive element. And it also has some fill conditions affecting it. And we've got an LFO affecting the filter decay, as well as, again, like picking different samples. So it's just a tiny bit, but because I have these samples next to each other, we can let the LFO randomly pick different pitches for it to play with, which continues to create this evolving percussive element. Onto the bass. So I had this idea in mind of a just kind of sinewy, meandering bass line that would just kind of wander under the track. I actually found it a little difficult to find a bass that fit, so I ended up making this one just out of, I think this was like a kick, like it's like a percussive, like distorted kick bass kind of sample. So just mingled that a little bit. Here comes one of my favorite samples, actually. I chose this one for the track a bit late, but this tonal wind weirdness, I just love the way this kind of texturizes and creates more atmosphere in this track. It's this sample here, but I don't think that's what Loopop named it. I believe I renamed some of these as I was going through them on my computer, so shout out Radiohead. And then lastly, I also knew I wanted to use this vocal sample with the quasar. You can't get the binaural aspect of it because the Digitakt sample's in mono, but that's okay. I thought about doing some vocal sampling myself, recording myself, but I realized, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to chop it up and then put it all in the Digitakt. That seems like maybe it's outside the bounds of the rules of the contest, so we decided to just go with the vocal sample that's already here. So I've just chopped that up into little bits, and I've got some fill conditions and different sample slices here and there going. And then we come to the very end of the track, and I knew that I wanted to bring back the Godfather sample again in some kind of way. So I did something actually quite simple, but I think it has a really cool effect. I took the original sample that I had made, whacked it into reverse, and just slapped all of the delay on it I possibly could. And there you have it. So that's the track, and that's my breakdown. Thank you for listening. If you found this useful or informative, feel free to give me a like. And if you are interested in any further information about how I made this track, a longer breakdown, or other tips and tricks on how to use the Digitakt, feel free to drop me a line. Thanks.